best and brightest creative minds here at Riot Games actually, working on some new mascots for you guys. Some new mascots. So we can unveil them for you guys here. We've got the Clutch Gaming Star Cowboy. Fits perfectly in the center of your mascot. We got the shooting star right there.
Not sure about the gun, but like.
So wait, Rioters drew this?
Yeah, yeah. This is some of the best work that we could come up with. So that's what we've got for you, and we didn't want to leave you out either,
I want to
Steve.
see this.
So
Come on, bring it on.
So we can bring up the the Warring Kingdom Steve.
Is that Zin like riding a horse?
No, this is you out on a ranch. I think this was one of our photographers.
This is me this morning.
Yeah, one of our photographers actually captured this. Actual photo of Steve. There you go. So
look at that. I look pretty young in that photo.
Yeah, I mean I think these mascots are looking pretty good. We're not gonna just give them away too easily though. So what we were thinking, maybe a little bet on the game. Whoever loses, the mascot can become perhaps the Twitter logo for a little bit.
I'm down for that.
Twitter logo for a week for the loser.
I mean, I feel like when you set odds, you're supposed to set them the other way, where you have the worse odds and I get the better odds, because
you want a handicap.
Yeah, I want a handicap, right? Like,
but really, it's like a reward for losing. It's like a consolation prize
fair.
How great those mascots are.
Sounds great to me.
Fine.
Yeah,
we'll do it for a day.
Okay, for a day. There you go.
One day.
Okay, it's agreed. Glad to get that out of the way. So it's good to have you guys here. I think we have heard from you guys kind of in the past, obviously, Eyes On. You've been in the scene for a really long time, but not everyone, I think, is like fully clear on like what exactly you guys do, what exactly is your role in the kind of the day-to-day organization. So, maybe give a little bit of a glimpse into that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I started my esports career kind of centered around League of Legends. I used to play professionally back in the day. This is before
Season 1, baby.
Actually, before Season 1. This is during the ESL time, where there were different tournaments around the world where you'd earn a certain amount of points, and then there was the World Finals in Hanover, and so I played in that, and yeah, I just started building the team, and then about what was it, 4 years ago, decided to take Team Curse at the time and actually merge that esports organization into Team Liquid, and Victor and I started running the company. As far as like the day-to-day, I am kind of really actively involved in the GM side of things in terms of putting the roster together, thinking about all the resources that the guys need in order to train, so facility and staff and analysts and coaches and sports psychologists and all that kind of stuff in the Alienware training facility. So and then really finding the right kind of coaches to execute kind of the vision for the team. Yeah, but pretty actively involved. We were based out of LA here, and that's where we have the team. So
awesome. So pretty much overseeing everything in the day-to-day.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so I got my start in esports actually sponsoring Team Liquid.
Oh, okay.
About 4.5, 5 years ago now, we did user acquisition and sponsorships there. Sponsored Team Liquid before the merger, then sponsored Team Liquid post-merger.
Okay.
Got to meet Mark and Steve and everyone out there like 2014, is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Long time ago. And then ran a team called Team Archon for a bit, which was Dota and Hearthstone team. Switched into
Rockets.
Yeah,
I remember that team. Yeah.
We didn't win that many games, but then we came over, joined the Rockets in 2016, spent a year figuring out what we want to do in esports. League of Legends was the best esports still is, as far as I can tell. And so we jumped in and we created Clutch Gaming, and for the most part, similar to what Steve does, like help out with in terms of the analysis of the players and empowering our guys to do their jobs and put together good rosters and good strategies, and then overseeing the side of the business to make sure that we can all go home and pay rent. That's something we couldn't do a few years ago.
It's definitely, as someone who has been in esports for a long time, that is a noble goal to have for anyone involved in the scene. So, we were talking a little bit, you want to talk a little bit about kind of red side versus blue side. I know you guys are both very actively involved in the game. You've been even casting the Liquid Academy game.
So much fun.
So
just this week, I casted the Academy game on Thursday. So it's a lot of fun, just to like stay involved and show I know a little bit about the game. I can hold my own. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that easy. So I mean, I think you're doing a really good job. We'll have to be careful that we're not losing our jobs anytime soon.
Looks like we picked up Xayah Rakan, which from my perspective is a really, really strong bot lane, and I think with the Morgana ban, which from my perspective, I'm a Morgana main, I play a lot of solo queue, I play a lot of Morgana, like I don't I don't like playing into a Morgana when I'm playing Rakan, so I think it's just a really strong bot-sided draft, and I'd like to see that DoubleLift's not playing fucking Vlad or Heimer or something.
I prefer DoubleLift to Heimer, man.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that we've talked about and off goes unsaid is just if you're blue side, you gotta dictate the order of the draft because you have first pick. And so as a result, we have to ban Aatrox even though Solo plays Aatrox. We have to ban Nocturne even though Moon plays Nocturne because those are just such strong champions. And Talia as well. And so what's funky is that now we have to react to the fact that they picked Rakan. Like I'm sure we considered the Xayah combo, but Xayah's the other champ that Xayah combo as well. It's like you said, Morgana. We don't have it on the table. As plus Tahm Kench is great, but poor Vulcan, the guy has to play Tahm Kench another game in the LCS. And then, I think right now we're just basically going off of something that we've probably seen in scrims a bunch of times, which is just carry top laner. Impact gets to counter pick. Impact prefers tanks usually, and so let's see if he does something crazy on his side, and then we hope for the best and giving Febiven the counter pick here and hoping that he can just carry us to a victory. Yeah, and not let Double do that. So
yeah, one of the things. So this is kind of funny, but I remember when Piglet was here for the World Championships in LA, and he had a Smurf account in North American solo queue, and this is when I actually try-harded in solo queue, and I was like okay ranked, and I ended up running into some guy in solo queue that his name was like, IO, one of those Smurf counts.
One of those Smurf names.
And I remember playing, and I was laning with him, and he was playing Ezreal, and I was like, this is the best Ezreal I've ever played with in my entire life. And I was like, this guy is just insane. Who is this? And I was streaming. There's actually a clip of this, and I'm just like flipping the fuck out. I don't understand how this guy is so good, and then later, I find out it's Piglet.
And 2 months later, he's on your team?
Yeah, and 2 months later, I'm like, I'm flying to Korea. I'm going to sign this guy. And it ended up happening.
That's actually amazing.
It is. And he was playing Ezreal. And so from my perspective, Piglet and Ezreal just kind of go together. It's just his kind of champion.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Yes.
Piglet and Ezreal.
So he's... he's scary on Ezreal, he gets a lot of damage off.
How does it feel then seeing, it's like Piglet's your boy, right?
Piglet,
you ran into him in solo queue, you recruited him, you brought him to North America, and now he's on the other team, right?
Yeah.
Like he's going up against you guys. Is that kind of weird for you?
It's one of those things where I've become accustomed to it after so many years of being in League of Legends and having academy teams and Team LoL Pro and Curse Academy and Team Liquid Academy. I think somebody did the calculation and it's something like 130 players have been through the Curse Team Liquid organization at one point. So at this point, I feel more like, like foster talent or have people and then they go on and they have successful careers at other esports organizations, It's not that big of a deal. There is a little bit of it that's kind of fun to watch, where I'm like, Piglet used to play for us, and like we upgraded to DoubleLift, and now let's see who's
right.
Yeah, exactly. Am I going to be the asshole that made the wrong decision or not? So.
That's kind of funny. I always feel like there's two camps of people when they're playing against ex-teammates. Some of them want them to do well, and then the others are like, we got to slam them. We got to show them. We got to show them who's boss. So
yeah, exactly. So we'll see. What was the mid laner for Clutch? Was it Azir? Was that the pick?
Yeah, we picked Azir.
Azir. So I think Azir is a really good pick into Orianna. Scales, really good control of the lane. I think has priority. And as we've seen, I think from a lot of the Clutch games, is that having a lot of priority in the mid lane and centering your team composition around allowing him to carry is a winning condition of itself. He's a really good player, and if he's given the right resources, he can kind of take control of the game. So I'm kind of really curious about how that ends up, happening in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, for Febiven, obviously Azir has been such a comfort pick, right? Yeah. That's kind of one of his most signature champions, and Orianna plays pretty slowly, scales pretty well, right, as well, but it's one of those things where then you're almost kind of like handshaking that you're both going to play the game slowly, you're both going to get your items and see, kind of how it comes down in team fights. But, one of the things to talk a little bit more, you were talking about Aatrox and some of these required bans. it's interesting to see how the different teams are approaching it, because we saw yesterday Optic, you can either say, all right, this is too hard to deal with, it's not worth our time to try to prepare a counter strategy, let's just ban it every game, and that's the kind of resource you're spending. Or you can invest your time and say, all right, we are going to figure out the counter strategy to that and let it through, right? And that's kind of what Optic did yesterday with Fiora into that. There's famous examples, SKT versus EDG, letting Faker's undefeated LeBlanc through and having counter strategies for that. So like, where do you guys lie as far as like, how should that kind of scrim time and investment be spent? Should you be trying to figure out those new strats?
I mean, absolutely. Baiting a team, like let's say you're really comfortable into some sort of comfort pick into Aatrox, and that's going to do well. It's going to scale into late game. But it depends on that player being comfortable with the counter pick that makes sense. Like Dokla, I think is his name. Like I think he was a Fiora main in terms of like reaching Challenger on the ladder. So when you have something that's already a staple and you're already comfortable with it, you don't have to learn the champion and put 50 games into it, then I think it makes sense. And you can kind of more comfortably run it and leave the Aatrox up. But if the counter pick is something where you're like, oh man, I gotta learn that champion and be really good at it, and so good that I'm gonna like beat out an OP champion, that's tough.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, this is fun.
Oh my god.
Ooh.
Oh,
That's
wow.
That looked like last tick of Ignite pretty much there.
That was spicy.
Yeah. Very different reactions. He's like, yeah, things are looking good. Sebastian's like, is it a great remake? Is there a is that a bug?
I just love Xayah Rakan. I think it's such a strong lane. You get baited by the shield from Rakan's W, and it's just a really good lane. I think it's strong early, mid, and late.
Yeah.
So it's just a power pick. That's one of those things that you give up in exchange for banning an Aatrox, for example. So a lot of it is like give or take in terms of the banning strategy and how comfortable you are playing into it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it obviously works really well with Graves here too, because Graves can kind of be an aggressive invading style jungler. You can take away a lot of camps. You can kind of have priority over the Trundle too. So if you have a strong lane, that enables those junglers so much. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes goes a little bit unseen in pro play, is that it's like the jungle matchup is so heavily dictated by who has priority in the lanes, right? If you're playing solo queue, the lanes aren't necessarily responding to invades and coming with you and actually playing around each other, but in pro play, it's such a big difference there because it's so much more coordinated.
Yep.
I just think that was just real quickly, that was really funny, which is that Vulcan and Piglet played enough together that Vulcan's initial reaction after eating Piglet was to step up. It wasn't to like run away. It was like, oh wait, they blew their spells, let's go after them, right? And it's really funky in terms of those are the types of like synergies we see with like Apollo and Hakuo as well. And I think those are also types of synergies you've started to see with Olleh and DoubleLift, where Olleh plays so differently in scrims than on stage with Double. But they've started to get into a really good rhythm in terms of what they want to do and pull offs, which is fun.
Oh, it looks like
You got canceled.
Yeah, it looks like Moon's coming down here for a bot lane gank, and Olleh's getting baited by the W, but Graves is here. Come on, do you have flash double lift or no?
No, I think he used flash on the initial fight, so.
Yeah, that's a really good gank from Moon.
Yeah.
Just to know that the flash is down. Xmithie.
Piglet, like, he's nearsighted, right? And he's like, we have no idea if Olleh's going to engage, but like, nah, I'm just going to throw out true shots, more true shots at him.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's really not too bad when you have teleport, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It kind of, the whole teleport strategy means like you can play pretty aggressive in the early game, which is really favors Piglet's play style. Like, hey, if I die, I'm not going to lose experience and gold from the wave. I can just give up the, first blood gold or whatever. It's not as bad as it could be.
That's why they're nerfing teleport, right? So.
Yeah, well, it's already nerfed on this patch, and it's kind of, it did have a minute longer cooldown now, and it's kind of interesting. I was talking with Freak, and this is basically the weakest that teleport has ever been in like the history of the game. But people are still playing it because at the pro level, A, it's comfort, and that's like kind of how people have learned to play the game, and B, it's again so much about the coordination and knowing how to effectively use it, because teleport is pretty garbage if you don't actually use it effectively, right? But if you have like a perfect TP flank, that can just decide a game with one summoner, and it's kind of that balancing act between, you talk about, okay, well, you can take more aggressive fights because you have the TP as a fallback, but you also have a higher chance of winning those aggressive fights if you take a combat summoner, right? So like, where is that break point is kind of hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
It must really suck to be a top laner. Every time you've figured out something cool to do, immediately someone from the other lanes are like, no, I'd rather us do this strategy instead.
They're just going to
yeah.
TP as well.
I mean, it's interesting because I think you guys picked GP on the 4, and we had counter pick on top lane, and I don't think Mundo does too well into GP, at least in the early game.
Technically, GP is a soft counter, right, to Mundo. But I mean, I think Impact is he's like a world-class tank player, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why you guys picked him up. He's so good at that and that style of play, and especially with the Xayah Rakan and with the Graves. Like it's like you really want to put him on tank. So I think I give a lot of credit to our staff for figuring out
this is gonna be spicy because I don't know if top laner has TP or if GP is 6 already.
Yeah,
but this could
Pobelter's
go
coming
bad.
as well, so they're actually going to
Olleh just definitely whiffed that a little bit.
Pobelter's still here, so I mean, there's chance they can
Pobelter's
push
here.
it in.
Oh, come on,
Shockwave.
come on, Eugene, get.
Oh, you hate to see it happen.
Thank God! Oh, Eugene. Oh, man.
He got the flash. He got the flash. He got the flash. That's where
Just like all those checks finally came in handy.
Damn it. Yeah, you hate to see that.
Yeah, you really hate to see that happen.
Such a nice way of putting things.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, man.
So, hate to see that, but, pressure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? It was flashed. It's not like he completely whiffed or anything. So.
And you guys have the wave in a really good position, so we're going to lose out on
What's really good is that it looks like Double, is getting a pretty decent advantage in CS in the bot lane here. So with all the shenanigans and summoner spells and all the pressure and everything, really what it comes down to is how much gold you're farming. Yeah. Right?
Although it's a little cut off on our screen, so I have no idea how many CS stacks that Vulcan's got to knock.
Yeah.
Is that 0?
It adds into it anyway.
Oh, okay.
So like relic shield stacks and stuff will go to the person that they have been gifted that gold, so it will show up for Piglet.
Oh, wow. It looks like Impact's just straight up
1v1, yeah.
That is really close. And he can kind of go a bit more aggressive because he knows GP ulted bot, right? So GP doesn't have the ult for the 1v1, but obviously things are going pretty good on top. And you guys talked a little bit about, about that pick, but it's, it is playing to the tendencies of Impact, right? Like he is most often going to default to tank play. So you can kind of pre-counter pick, or well, not really a true counter, but you know what I mean. You can get those advantageous matchups sometimes just by playing to a team or a player's tendencies.
Yeah, absolutely. But yesterday, I mean, I think he was kind of like a little bit of the unsung hero, on GP.
He played really well.
He played insane. Well. Like the amount of damage he was doing in team fights and the double barrels and stuff, it was pretty insane. So, he's really good at tanks, but he has a couple picks where he can pull out a carry GP game.
Yeah, his GP is definitely really strong, and people obviously do really look at him as a tank player, but his world championship skin is Jax, right?
Yeah.
It's not like he hasn't played carries as well. It's not like he can't bring those out. His Gnar, everyone remembers all the top die stuff was really based around how well he was playing on Gnar, and but that's a trade-off you make, right? And it's one of those things where if you're willing to pick Mundo because you think the champion is strong enough, that's good. But you're also picking it not only into the GP but into Trundle, which is going to make it harder for you in the late game too. Yeah. So there's so many things that are kind of going into that.
The RNG.
Yeah. Piglet controls where he gets spit out by Tahm Kench, right?
Yeah.
And he just straight up that's
a Piglet special, man.
He just straight up was yeah, I'm gonna just get spit out towards the two of them.
And it's
so ballsy.
What's funky is that it reminds me a lot of, I forget who it was. It's not Huni. It's who was that top laner you guys played at MSI? Who was playing for the Chinese team.
Wonder?
Yeah, no, the Chinese team won. I'm blanking on the name. Do you guys remember?
I'm not thinking, was it Xayah or something? Or I'm not sure who you're exactly
the
RNG top laner?
The RNG top laner.
Oh, God.
I should know that.
It's all good, guys. But anyway, so one of the funky things that he did, I think that Impact also does super well, just always bluffing, jungle pressure. And I was like, that's fun. You don't know where you are. And then we have these situations where it's nice stopwatch.
Yeah, but it looks like you guys have definitely numbers here, and Pobelter has no flash or ult. So
it might have been Let Me.
Was it Let Me? Oh yeah,
Let Me or Xyah, I think was their sub, but I don't think he actually came. I think Let Me played.
Nice. Yeah, I love that where Double's okay, there's so many resources mid. Tahm Kench just used ult. We've got to make this play. We have to do the counter play. I think that's something that Team Liquid when we're practicing, it's always a seesaw, right?
Yeah.
You know, as you're making a play, something else is happening on their side of the map, and if they fail to do that, it's inherent advantage for the team. And so to force those plays and know when you have to make them so that you're not just giving up something for nothing is kind of like thinking about the game a lot like chess. You know, I'm going to trade my rook for the knight and all that kind of stuff.
That barrel matters. Oh, crap.
That was close.
Wow, that was super
The barrel was the biggest part about that. That was really good play impact. Get that barrel.
Yeah, there's so much of that mini game. Like the matchup depends so much on who's actually going to get the last hits on the barrel, right? Like we've seen Mundo versus GP go heavily in both champions' favors. Like depending on who's playing the matchup, depending on how they actually play it. Because Mundo can win early if you get ahead and if you're actually kind of winning that barrel mini game. You know, it can start to go a little bit bad for GP. But, you know, to talk a little bit about Clutch and about the season that you guys are having, obviously, you know, a lot of roster changes, you know, kind of coming in for you guys. And, you know, just kind of curious more on your reasoning there and also the thoughts around Academy and the Academy scene in general and developing talent, because it feels like this split, teams have been using Academy players and leveraging Academy players so much more than we've ever really seen before.
Yeah, and I think that's good for the game. And I think you probably agree with this. Like, it's really nice because one of the biggest complaints you heard of prior to this year was just, oh, like, I'm really good, but I don't have a chance to show my ability on stage. Like, what should we do about that? We've been really high on Vulcan this entire year, and one of the downsides for the poor guy, which we had told him from day one, was like, we also think Hakuo is like one of the, if not the best support player. I'm like, sorry, buddy, that you're not on one of the other like 7 teams that would probably have started you like spring split. And one of the things that we wanted to try out there is that we're actually a fairly straightforward team, right? Like we ran that graphic yesterday. We never ran funnel. We never ran smite mid. Like we're a very straightforward team.
Yeah.
And it occurred to us, even though we were in 8th place and we were only 2 games out first, that we want to add a little bit more variance so it's not so straightforward to prep against us. And it seemed like a good week to do it. Like TL is a very strong team. I think Apollo said it best last time we played you guys, which is like, you know, they do so well against us in scrims because of the style of play and our style of play.
TL also plays very straightforward, right? So if you're both playing pretty standard style, if one team is executing a bit better, then it's hard to kind of get upset wins.
This would be.
I was about to say you hate to see that.
Yeah. You love to see that.
Oh man, I was just like, come on, buddy.
Speaking of Apollo and objective steals, right?
Yeah.
But how do you weigh then? You know, you are in 8th place where you were in 8th place. Now you're tied for 9th, 10th, whatever you want to actually say. How do you weigh immediate performance versus like, you know, rewarding Academy performance or you know, kind of looking more towards the future? Because you guys need wins now if you want to go to Worlds, if you want to get to playoffs.
It's hard, and I don't think it's necessarily a right or wrong answer for us, right? Like I think if we had stuck with the same roster and ran out Apollo, Hakuo, and Lyra again, like we would have been pretty much in the same spot. One of the things that I think franchising's really allowed us to do, and something that we're also thinking about actively, is like you know, looking towards the future. I mean, I think the large part of this is Vulcan for me, right? Vulcan was someone we identified in the draft for scouting grounds. Shout out to Derek Tennis for all that stuff. And he was someone that we just really want to see how he performed on stage. We want to see how he was going to react in the games. And on top of that, we didn't think at the time and still now, like the delta in terms of like how do you balance different players and different characters we can draft for these players versus like our wins and losses, right? And so completely agree. If we were in a situation where we would be relegated, like a la last year, I think we'd be far more risk averse, right? Because you have to get out of that zone. Everyone would be really stressed. In fact, everyone in this league would be really stressed about like making sure what's out there. Whereas now we're like, look, we want to be a little bit more empirically driven. We want to think about how these things interact with each other. We want to see how Max plays with Apollo in Academy, Max plays with Apollo and Hakuo, and in the LCS, we wanted to see how Febiven plays with Piglet Vulcan. Yeah. And so that's one of those things where we're pretty excited about that outcome, and it's great to do, but completely agree. It's definitely a riskier strategy, and one that is costing us about a 1.8K goal deficit at 15 minutes. So let's see how it happens.
You're scaling.
Right,
You're scaling. It's fine. You've got Azir. You've got late.
You always have late game.
You always have late game. Especially when you don't have late game. That's when you most have late game.
I love sometimes I'll listen to scripts and they're like, oh, well, we got this late game. And I'm like, no, you don't.
It's like Corky, Lee Sin, Blitzcrank. It's like, we got late. Don't worry.
Exactly.
It's fine. We're scaling.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, just to like piggyback on that topic,
Yeah.
you know, I'd say before there was the permanent like system for most of the teams, it was very much like you have to do anything you possibly can to avoid promotion relegation, and you are less apt to like give a rookie a chance to prove themselves. I think what we've seen though is like in the academy scene that players get an opportunity to kind of shine, right?
Yeah.
Like if they're playing against other players in academy and their stats and also their in-game play and how they communicate behind the scenes is really good, that's an opportunity to say, hey, like let's give them a chance in LCS.
Inter-team scrims, right? Like a lot of the academy teams play against LCS teams too.
Yeah, we had Solo playing in academy for a couple games just because you wanted to, practice a couple of carry champions on stage as opposed to because he plays tank so often. I think the other thing for us, and this is I'm sure true for you guys, like our goal set isn't necessarily sneaking into playoffs, right? Like our goal is to make worlds, and so if that's your stated goal, you like make decisions that may seem like short-term suboptimal, but in the long term is what you want to do. That was super unlucky, by the way.
He just got that by
like a frame or something like that. Yes, I think that's sort of the decision making behind it. It's like, look, completely agree. If you had to fight and
you're trying to shoot for first instead of barely scraping a sixth.
Right, and so let's try things out. Let's add some variants. Like, I mean, the fact of the matter is like we're like it's not that you're never going to see Apollo or Hawk Warrior at the LCS again. Yeah. That's not the case, right? What is going to be interesting is that it makes, at least in our opinion, it'll probably make it slightly harder to prep, knowing that Piglet and Vulcan play different champion pools and
you might play Piglet mid.
Yeah, you never know. he might.
It could happen.
Just like,
it could happen.
Like, look.
Maybe top.
Learn from the best, right?
Yeah.
We were worried if Piglet was going to play Rise this game.
That would be hilarious, actually, if they played Piglet mid against you guys. But
that is something that I would say people do prep for, right? Like, Piglet's play. Rise is his second most played champion in the academy right now.
Well, then you can play Rise bot.
And he does play Rise bot.
He does play. That's why
but then he sometimes goes mid anyway. Yes. Like, I think Febi and
this is your lane. This is my lane.
Yeah, exactly.
Febi and Piglet were talking about that. It's like, so who takes the CS when we have to contest CS? He's like, whoever can get it first.
That's very funny. All right, so talking about TL a little bit, obviously you guys are in a bit different situations. Like you guys won in Spring Split. The Spring Split champion has never actually missed Worlds, so not a first that you're looking for there. But like championship points wise, you guys are in a really good spot to make it to Worlds, right? And you guys went to MSI. We're disappointed with your performance there, I assume. How do you guys kind of look forward then? Focusing on NALCS and winning this again and trying to really perform well here versus how do you look towards Worlds and kind of fix and improve upon some of the issues or challenges that you faced at MSI?
Yeah, I think, as an organization, as a team, we need to identify what are the main issues that are right in front of us that get us to that next point of being able to solve what's later down the track. And I was so glad that we went to MSI. We had some issues at MSI. We know exactly what they were, and we spent a ton of time and effort into trying to resolve those. And without getting into detail exactly what it is, it's just a focus on that, and that makes us better as a team. But we first have to, either win or place high enough in the summer to qualify for Worlds. And that's what's right in front of you. I don't want to look too far into the future. You become so aspirational and trying to affix to a goal that's not as tangible as it needs to be in order to be executed on. So you want to put things in front of the guys that are like, hey, this is what you need to get better at this week.
You need to beat Clutch this week. You need to do that, whatever, to beat them.
But sometimes it's not even about like winning or losing or beating a certain team. It's more of like, Olleh, you need to make sure that you're at 99.9% calling summoners before every major team fight. And if you're not doing that, like, you're putting the team at a disadvantage of some sort of percentage. And so you put like realistic things that they can like
achievable,
achieve.
measurable goals that
Yeah.
you can hold them accountable to. Which
It's like standard
over
business
time
stuff.
increase your chances to win.
It sounds so simple,
Yeah.
but it's like
KPIs, just like understanding, like constant.
But it's hard to get people to well, I think buy into it if there's not that like a high enough level of trust. I think that's a thing that you hear about a lot of teams struggling with is players not trusting each other, players maybe not trusting the coaches, things like that. And exactly like you said, it sounds very easy on paper, right? You just do this, and then, oh, great, you did that. Okay, now you just do the next thing, and super duper, and now you beat SKT you're in the World Finals.
What ends up happening is that you identify these goals, and then you play a game, and you lose a game that has nothing to do with those goals, and that becomes the new focus, but it really shouldn't be. And so sometimes it becomes a distraction. Oh, it looks like there's a pretty big fight up here.
Yeah, sort of a strange situation. They're ganking Piglet and Vulcan. And then
this is looking bad for Clutch.
This looks really bad.
Yeah, I think that's everyone dying and Baron. Or maybe, no, I guess Solo's going to get away.
I mean, at this point, Xayah is so freaking strong. I mean, she's about to pick up IE on her next back. She's over, what is that? That's like
80,
rapid fire.
60 CS up.
60, 70 CS up on Piglet. Like, that's significant. You know,
it's a crit scaling marksman that kind of outscales Ezreal too.
It's really hard to beat that, and I think that's just like the power of Xayah Rakan. It's just super, super strong. It's a ticking time bomb, good in all the phases. Now, if he gets this with a barrel, I'm gonna walk off the fucking freaking stage.
Okay, good. No Ezreal.
He didn't. But I mean, it's true, right? And it's one of those things. It's like the push and pull. TL obviously has so much faith in DoubleLift being able to carry games, so maybe you're willing to sacrifice, the laning phase a little bit of impact on the Mundo because he can create space for your marksman who can then take over in a team fight. And this is just one of those cases where it just feels like Clutch is trying to opt into this fight, but TL seemed a little bit more prepared for it. And if you can't get to DoubleLift in these fights, he's so strong that it becomes all about him.
I mean, part of that was Vulcan just made a little bit of a misplay in terms of where he Kench ulted in.
That's a good question. I don't know if he did. Like, the problem was that like they didn't show in the replay, but Olleh and DoubleLift were already behind in the jungle behind the tier 2, right? And so they're pincering in, and so Vulcan takes Piglet out of the fight and goes back to his tier 3, then suddenly it's a 5v3 in the top lane. So
Piglet just needed to immediately E the Oriult or something.
Oh, he had also E prior the
before he eat it.
Olleh's
Oh
ult,
no.
so
Okay.
It was sort of like a rock and a hard place situation for him, and that's unfortunate. You hate to see that.
Yeah, you do.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see it.
Well, now the game's kind of a little bit out of control.
Oh man.
I'm kind of curious, a little bit on your guys' thoughts about North America as a region then, right? There's so much parity in the league right now. We talked about like a couple games separating first and last. Is the region getting better? Are there more good teams that are challenging these higher tier teams now? Or is it like sloppy play, or what is it? Like where do you kind of guys see it?
Do you think?
My honest opinion?
Yeah, what's your honest opinion?
My honest opinion is that, I think North American players are working like as hard as any other region, at least from what I see at TL. Like these guys are putting in 10 to 15 hour days, like nonstop, super dedicated, very little distraction. And I also believe in all the infrastructure, like we have analysts and coaches and sports psychologists, and like the environment's super good. So I don't think it's that. And so I basically come and deduce down to, and I hate to say it, but I really think it's ping. Like, you play a certain amount of games every single day, and you're just getting suboptimal practice in terms of mechanics. And, these guys are playing on a 60 ping for most of that practice time. It's less effective. You're not getting like the kind of outplay prediction sort of stuff that you're able to do over and over. So it sounds like an excuse, but
where do you
I think it's a factor.
Where do you land on the argument then about like, players, self-organizing and maybe like playing their own games on the tournament realm and these sorts of things, like more like mix and match, kind of solo queue style games, but with all the pros and the academy players and all this sort of thing? Like, should the players be doing that? If you feel, hey, that's the reason our region is worse, is that something that you think you can kind of foster and get started within TL?
Yeah, I think I think it's a great point. I think we need to put more effort and energy into it. I think part of it was that it was like the responsibility of the players to all get on board and kind of decide as a collective that they wanted to do that instead of
Takes a lot of organization.
Right. Instead of the organizations saying like, you guys are forced to play solo queue on this, right? And like, you can get there both ways, but it was more hopeful that the players would have buy-in to doing it, and I think it was really tough to get the player buy-in. You know, like longer queue times and all these sorts of things. And then there's all the idea of like, if you're playing against the players that you're going to be playing in LCS that week, then can you practice what you're actually going to end up playing, because you're giving them information about what champions you're going to play, and you have hidden accounts, and so you don't want people to know. So there's not a clear answer.
Yeah.
Aside from just creating a server. In LA.
I mean,
move to Chicago.
Move to Chicago. Yeah, what else is Chicago?
but to be fair, right? Like I would say, like the other side of the argument is just like something we saw in the World Cup, which is this concept of convergence, which is all regions, the top regions and the bottom regions, will eventually converge together in terms of skill cap and ability. And even watching you guys at MSI, like I wouldn't have said that you guys were like significantly worse than anyone else in the field, right? Like it was clear that there were bad days in that cycle, right? There were these days where things didn't work out. There are days where
things didn't work out.
Things don't work out, and you have to stick to it, and you have to get better about it. I do think it's a little bit. I think one of the things that China seems to do a lot better, and maybe something that we should look towards, is that I feel oftentimes we are so stuck in this like idea there's a proper way to play the game, and the proper way is trying to mirror what Korea is doing or what whoever is doing. Whereas, like, honestly, if you look at China, it seems as if they have figured out a new way to play the game.
Yeah, which I think is really good for the game.
Yeah,
100%. And so, maybe the solution for us, for us, is that we need to figure out ways to win out the rest of the year. But but for the league in general is partly give infrastructure time. Like the infrastructure wasn't there 3 years ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't there 2 years ago. It's only been there for 18 months. China's had this infrastructure for a little bit of time as well.
Yeah.
Give them the ability to like embrace infrastructure, and then instead of assuming like there's a lot of people fall into this trap of being like, oh, we're so smart, we'll figure out this one thing and it's going to solve everything. Like, let's stop doing that and let's just start trying everything, and then we'll just like go iterate through the different things. Like if ping's an issue, let's just bring the server here, and that'll solve one thing. If that doesn't work, we'll go to the next one, right? And then we can keep going on through.
Cool. Well, congratulations. You're going to have the Star Cowboy Twitter avatar. That's going to be...
yeah, there you go.
Oh, I forgot.
That's going to be looking nice.
Our poor
it's going to be looking
has
clean.
No idea. We're going to need a full PNG version of that.
I'm sure we will have that all sent to you. It's going to be looking good. I'm sure you're going to be raking in some new followers thanks to the sick new logo.
Oh, man.
I want to know who the artist is.
I do too.
It's
him or
Asa.
her. Is it really?
Asa Donay.
Oh, well.
Nice.
We gotta get the handle and you gotta get full credit, right? Like that's the Twitter way.
There you go.
Give full credit
you gotta give the artist credit, right? I mean, he's gonna be wanting to get some commissions, from the other teams.
And we'll have to buy out the rights.
Yeah.
To print on a shirt. Right?
What do you think it'll look better? Do you think you should slap it in the middle of the logo or just have it as him himself? Because he can be that star. He can be the star cowboy. He can just be there in the middle.
In the middle. There you go.
Yeah, with
That's
the little
probably
whip and the
better.
gun,
Like I like the idea of maybe having one of our managers dressing up as a mascot for one of these weekends.
I think they would look great.
Romain.
Oh, there it is. Just in case you forgot what it looked like.
Oh yeah, I mean, looks.
You're gonna have nightmares about this thing.
I was gonna say it looks a lot better this time around than I did before the game.
It's winking at you.
Oh man.
The cowboy hat it's looking risky. It could fall off at any time. It's
tottering a little bit.
It's tottering. Yeah.
Some programmatic way to make sure it's exactly 24 hours and not a second more and second less.
Yeah. You can bring in the mascot as Kobe doing some. I don't even know what that was, but he's going by.
That's the
he's
free
staying
dance.
limber.
That's the free dance.
He's staying limber. He's getting ready to cast, and you already have the TL mascot. You just got to bring the horse.
Yeah, we just got to bring the horse. There you go.
Exactly. So
bring a horse to the LCS.
Oh
please.
my gosh, can you imagine?
Just
have the team riding in horses.
Like come into the LCS, flashing lights everywhere with a horse.
Okay, maybe we should do that if we make it to the finals.
Yeah, you should go march down the red carpet, Steve on a horse.
I love that.
Yeah, it's going to be looking good. It's going to be looking good. Well, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for having us here. This was a lot of fun.
For coming out. Yeah, it was great to talk and get some more insight with you. And you guys were, I think, very insightful, very analytical. You did a great job. And thank you to everyone for watching. And
thanks,
next
guys.
week,
Appreciate
we
it.
have another lounge coming up, I believe, off the top of my head. Okay, well, I don't have to do it off the top of my head. It is Freak, JJ, and Wild Turtle. That is going to be Sunday, August 4th during Echo Fox versus TSM, so that should be a good one. JJ been doing really well with FlyQuest since he came in. They're 5-2 since he came in.
I mean, their new FlyQuest macro of like, you know what, let's just end the game. Let's trade base.
I know, I love it.
It's working out.
It's actually, it's great.
Amazing.
They're like, okay, we're going to put the top laner and AD carry. We're just going to side push and let's see how you deal with it. You know?
I saw JJ today after the game, and he's like, after every game, I go over to Saint and I say, another clean FlyQuest Macto victory.
Right. And Saint's like, perfect.
Exactly,
Like, we
exactly.
can't
So
keep
nailed
getting
it.
away with this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Maybe
I
they
think you
can.
can.
Maybe they can. All right, well.
But JJ is doing really well.
He's doing great.
Like, hat off to him. He's really pulling it out.
More Academy talent on the up and up. Blabber's in there. We got a whole bunch of young guys coming up. But thank you again very much, guys. And we're going to hand it over to the guys at the desk to take it over for the rest of the day.